Okay, we're going to do a presentation on reimagining your learning strategy. And we're going to talk to you about a solution from Tribridge called ContentSphere. My name is Skip Marshall. I'm Vice President and CTO for Tribridge, and with me is Jim Johnson. He's the Product Manager for ContentSphere. And real quickly, we're going to give you a couple slides and ask you some questions, and we're going to jump right into the solution. So what we do at Tribridge HCM, we really have a multifaceted business around learning and performance. So we do everything from consulting engagements, implementation consulting, we're a Cornerstone on-demand partner, all the way through extending platforms and technologies. Are we getting feedback again? No? I hear myself echo. As well as doing custom software and custom development processes. So we have 3 questions for you. So 1, favorite ways to learn. I know it's really loud, but give me a couple examples of favorite ways to learn. Is it me? It might be me. Wouldn't be all that surprising. Nobody has a favorite way to learn?
Face to face.
There we go.
Yep.
It is me. I'm gonna switch sides. I'm gonna let you stand on that side. It doesn't like me over there. Okay, so face to face. What else? It's like I'm gonna have to stand in the front of the screen. Video-based learning. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
What other ways? By doing. That's a big one.
Yep.
Bite size, small chunks. Electronic performance scoreboard. So right time, right place. Good. Okay, next question. Favorite technologies to learn new information. So we heard video-based, performance support. What were some other ones? Phone. iPhone, iPads, yep. How many of you actually do your training on your iPads or tablets? A few of you? How many on your phones? Excellent. What others? Okay, next question. And what ways do you share new information? So when you're learning a new topic, how do you share it with others? Internet, okay. Somebody had said face-to-face earlier. Social media, okay. How many of you use social media to share new information? LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. Most of us, right? Coincidentally, or maybe not so coincidentally, I didn't hear anybody say you like to sit down in front of your LMS, in front of your computer and just take it. That's not your favorite way. We're going to talk about some new ideas around how learning takes place.
And
Jim?
Yeah, and as these questions have come up, it's clear that learning is happening everywhere and multiple different devices, different technologies, different ways of learning. And it's evident here. And this is the true real world. People are learning by doing, people are learning by reading, people are learning by watching videos, whether it's bite-sized or not. And they're not just learning in front of their LMS, they're learning from multiple sources. And they learn both personally and professionally from a multitude of services. And so it's critical to recognize that this is the current way people are learning. And so we're trying to help identify a better way for learning. And we're all familiar with 70-20-10. Skip, you want to talk a little bit about that?
So I think most of us are probably familiar with the 70-20-10 model. The problem is most of what we're doing today doesn't focus on the big pieces of what we're doing. The face-to-face interactions, the conversations, the social. We get it in bite-sized little pieces, and it's spread out over lots of tools, lots of platforms, lots of applications. You know, we go into our business portals and we link out to 5, 6, 8, 10 different applications that you're using through the system. So the key here is actually pulling all those together. Now, when we look at this, we see a lot of changes happening right now, right? So as far back as 2009, 77% was around ILT, right? So live instructors in front. And I don't even know when this came out that I would have thought it was that high, but it was pretty significant. Live events, live interactions are where we did a lot of our learning. But if you look over the years, as recently as last year, year before last, that's shrunk dramatically, and all these other areas are expanding. The interesting one you see, yes, we're seeing the online learning growing, but we're also seeing lots of growth around on-the-job training, apprenticeship, live interactions, things that are not a part of the formal learning process, or that we've never really considered part of that. We never grab all that information, so it's a big piece. And a couple interesting data points. One, 86% of organizations don't think they have the right data and the right information about their learning. If you think about it from a traditional learning model, if we're not capturing all of those informal activities, that means our systems may have 10%, 15% of the actual activities that are going on. So it's a very small portion of the actual information that's out there. Another interesting note, 64% of metrics are done manually or through the LMS, and that's it. How many other of you have other data sources for information out there for around learning? See, no hands, but lots of heads nodding. You're using it in all sorts of places, whether it's your social media applications that you're using, whether you're using your SharePoint services website to store information. There's lots of pockets of information that are out there, and you're not leveraging those at all. And then finally, 3 out of 4 use general training output data, right, to justify the impact. Now again, if we think about this, going back to the original comment I made, if you're only getting 10 or 15% of that information, how much of an impact can you really justify, right? You don't really have a whole picture. Jim?
And so that's where we'd like to introduce ContentSphere from Tribridge. ContentSphere is designed to help solve some of the challenges around tracking all of this informal learning. And it does so by building a bridge between all those informal systems, some of which you see here, whether it's media libraries, social networks, LMS platforms, traditional learning. Examples can be anything from Office 365 to Yammer to a traditional Cornerstone or Saba LMS platform. And our ability to capture all of this information provides companies with a better chance to justify the true impact that they're providing on learning. So we've got a short, quick little video.
Everyone is a learner, but we all learn in our own way. And the best learning happens when it's on our own terms, at our own pace. Today's high-performing organizations know that the world of learning is changing, and they need to put employees at the center. They know that employees expect learning to be continuous and personalized, making the pursuit of knowledge a seamless, integrated experience, no matter where they are. What if you could harness the power of modern technology to improve learner engagement? Now you can move beyond today's learning boundaries and join the learning revolution. Introducing ContentSphere from Tribridge. ContentSphere empowers learners to manage their learning anytime, from everywhere. It's a single experience where learners can easily access information from any source, your LMS, business articles, news sources, educational videos, and more. Then view it, add to it, and share it anywhere. It's technology designed for today's learner, so they can collaborate, personalize, and align their learning experience with your organization. ContentSphere unlocks the power of limitless learning and caters to a learner's dynamic professional needs wherever they are in the world. It's learning without boundaries, accessible, convenient, and seamless, anytime, everywhere. Move beyond learning curation and become a learning force multiplier with ContentSphere. It's time to unleash your learning and put people in the center of your strategy. This is a learning revolution of the people, by the people, and for the people. This is ContentSphere.
So that's obviously something you're hearing a lot here at the conference, is about how it's becoming a much more learner-focused world, learner-centric world. And ContentSphere is really one of the tools that's a tool we're making available to help capture that and provide companies with the opportunities to really engage in that space. So we'll talk through some typical use cases where ContentSphere can be applied. And the first is in an onboarding situation. So when new employees come on board, in the typical L&D world, there's corporate training, compliance training, policy training that needs to be provided. And we can do that by allowing L&D teams to curate content, whether it's their own or content that's available from other sources, as well as build a playlist of that content that they can share with their new employees. And beyond that, new employees get hired into the system. We can recommend training that their peers have taken previously. So we could provide an almost Amazon-like people who took this training also took this training type of concept. So that can be used to help new employees to the system onboard in and find training in a smarter way. We can also adapt through the ability to compare learner data and learning object data and learner data together, we can provide a more adaptive system that allows learners to find training that's more relevant to themselves. So a particular job title, a particular division of the company can find training that's more relevant to them.
It's important to note here, one of the kind of the differentiators here, it's not about what we as an organization can tell our employees to go take, right? Our ability to actually profile the users and say, okay, what's important to you, what's going to be meaningful to you, and let them really drive their learning is where this change starts happening. The ability to actually dynamically provide them context-relevant, user-aware content is really powerful.
And beyond that, one of the hardest things that people will tell you is finding training. A lot of employees, when they're doing their job and they encounter an issue where they're not quite sure what they need to do, they don't go to their LMS and say, how do I do this? They go to Google or Bing or some other search tool, or they ask a coworker, and which is all relevant because ultimately they need to be able to do their job and perform. But your company may lose complete tracking of what they're doing. So you don't have any visibility that all of this learning is taking place. And our ability to allow both a federated search across content that's both free available and subscription based, as well as the ability to allow the social collaboration options, provide companies with more insight into the learning that's actually taking place today. We also are learn through any content with ContentSphere. So when we take documents that may be in a PDF or Office document format, those aren't interactive. There's no tracking, but XAPI, as we are aware, can provide that capability. So we use XAPI to help track all those experiences across those typically non-interactive content, and whether that's a video, a podcast, or a document. And then we can integrate it with an LRS. We partner with Watershed as the LRS for analytics, but we can also just as easily partner with any of the other LRS platforms that a company might want to include. Sorry. Oh, and share. Oh. I'll get there eventually, sorry. So, and I think one of the key pieces here is learners like to learn by sharing with each other. And so our playlist ability allows them to share objects and share learning with their colleagues. So if they find a piece of training that they like, or they find a collection of training that they think is interesting, they can share it with their colleagues. A manager can build a playlist and share it with his or her team. A vice president can share it with a whole division if they so choose. And this social capability provides a little bit more of the consumerization. It makes their learning work the way their web works. And I think that's critical. And so with that, we'll walk through a little bit of a demo of ContentSphere.
Yeah, and while Jim gets ready for the demo, so just real quick, I'm going to give you a context for the user. So Sabrina is a engineering group. She's in the engineering group. She's a team supervisor, and she has some specific things she wants to improve her career, right? She's going to look at some technical aspects for her job. She needs to grow her communication skills and her leadership skills. So there's very specific things she wants to find, right? She ultimately wants to get into a more managerial role, be able to work remotely, and again, be mentored for development. And the employer, again, a very traditional engineering firm for the context of this, but one of the things that we're all faced with is the ability to actually focus in on an individual learner. So one of the things they're looking at is how do we retain our millennials? How do we focus on giving them a solution that makes sense for them and keeps them engaged? So improving overall engagement, and then again, developing those millennials and those new hires coming into their next generation of leadership.
So that got really big.
Can you get it up to full screen?
Yeah.
There we go.
I went back to this screen.
On the right screen.
We can fix that.
There we go.
Yep. So as we've been saying, ContentSphere is a tool to allow users to track and find all the training they need. So we start with search. Skip had said, Sabrina wants to find a better way to be a better manager. She wants more management training. And so she comes to ContentSphere and executes a search. And in that search, we find a podcast from Cornerstone, e-learning from Skillsoft, and a video from YouTube. So we've reached across these content sources to help find content that's relevant to her. But beyond that, we know something about Sabrina. We know what role she's in, where she is in the company, and we know things about the content. And because we have the metadata on both sides, we can compare those and then rank things based on how well they meet her needs. So management for Sabrina as a team supervisor versus management for, say, her boss or the vice president will have different search results because they have different needs when it comes to training. Additionally, we have some socialization, some consumerization. We built in a tool for ratings, favorites, and commentary, so learners can actually comment and help provide crowdsourcing, if you will, commentary on the learning that they're provided with. We talked about sharing. We do have the ability to share at the object level, so if this podcast was really cool and I wanted to share it with Skip, or Sabrina wanted to share it with her team members, we could do that. But she could also add it to a playlist. And our playlists are what you think they are in music, Spotify, iTunes. You build a playlist. And playlists can be anything you'd like them to be. So each learner can have his or her own playlist. From the next step is the learner can share them. So if I want to share a playlist with you, it's not sharing out to Facebook or LinkedIn. It's internal to the company, but I can share it with you. Then you, as a coworker, can copy it, make it your own, or subscribe to it so you get my updates. Beyond that, if you know that Skip puts out some really cool playlists every month, we can follow Skip and see all of the new playlists that he puts together. And so this socialization capability provides a little bit more sharing and collaboration around learning. And finally, we have the ability to track all of this in what we call the activity stream. Facebook for Learning is a good example, although it's not social. So all of the learning that you do, can be visualized in one location. And the best part about this is, not only do you see all of your learning, so you can take it to your manager and show why you should get a raise or why you should get that promotion. You can also, the company can see this and can do analysis across all of the training that all of their employees are doing and get a much better picture of the full 70-20-10 universe. And the last thing about ContentSphere is that the interface you see here is a little different than the one in the video, and that's because our interface is fully customizable. All of the features and functionalities are based with, use APIs to interact with the UX. So ContentSphere gives companies the ability to provide a unique, branded, specific to them interface to track and find learning.
Yeah, it's important to note this isn't adding your company's colors or adding a company logo. This is a totally unique interface. So whether you have a standard interface like what you see here, or it's something very specific for your organization, it's all about the personalization, the ability to actually create the environment that your learners are going to learn best in. So it could be a freestanding portal like this. It could be embedded in your LMS and integrated directly to an LMS, or it could be a part of your SharePoint or any other business site that you have within your organization. It allows that flexibility. As Jim mentioned, everything is built on a web service-based architecture, so the entire front end can be set aside and created for a specific use case.
And the nice thing is, not only do we have the ability to do one interface, but if you wanted to have a pocket of content that was specific to a piece of software, maybe a CRM or Salesforce tools that you use, maybe some additional internal support software, we can take and build into that software little on-the-point performance support pieces that take advantage of the Federation search and take advantage of the tools behind it, but can be limited to that aspect. And also, because it's API-based, we're building a native mobile application with a trusted partner to help us give you a native app access to the same information that you could get through the web on your PC. So that's ContentSphere. That's our
offer up any questions, or feel free to join us afterwards at our booth over here. Be happy to take you into a deeper dive and further questions. Any questions?
So the question is, we had YouTube as an example. Do we have any agreement with YouTube to be able to include their content? We are working through those types of partnerships. YouTube obviously is a broad example. A corporate YouTube search would bring up makeup tutorials and video game plays, and those of course would not be what we look for. We're looking more of a channel based, so specific channels that are more professional based, appropriate for learning. But we are working through those aspects.
Yeah, each source provider has its own different agreements that are in place, and some of the off-the-shelf content providers, it's one version of the agreement versus some of the open kind of the free content that's out there. So it's a different use case for each one. The nice thing is, because each organization's a little different, it allows the flexibility to pull those in and on a organization by organization basis. Any other questions?
No?
Excellent.
Well, thank you all very much for your time today. Feel free to stop by.